Hey everyone, welcome to Plug and Play Detroit, powered by Amplified Batch Zero Expo. My name is Adam Jensen. I am the director of the program, and we're very excited to have you here. So before we get started, I just want to give a quick shout out to all of our amazing partners in Plug and Play Detroit, who you'll be hearing from today and who have been each working with formally in Detroit for over a year, and in many cases far longer informally or in other locations. So thank you to Stellantis, MMSDC, BorgWarner, and the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification. We definitely couldn't be doing this without you. So I'd like to take a moment to remind everybody, what is EXPO anyway? And so for those of you who may not be as familiar with Plug and Play's Accelerator program or how that works, I'd like to take a moment to walk right through this. So back in August of 2020, we worked with each of our different corporate partners, who I mentioned a second ago, to talk to them about what are they really interested in and which kind of startup should we be inviting to this program. And so with that, our ventures team went out and we found over 500 startups that would meet their needs. And we took the time and we talked with a lot of those startups and we narrowed it down into this list of 85 startups, which we presented to these corporate partners back on September 14th of 2020. So we call that our top list. On October 22nd of 2020, the best startups of those 85, or maybe the most relevant startups of those 85, 21 different companies presented at our selection day, and basically had an opportunity to talk with our corporate partners, both in a group setting and as follow-up meetings and one-on-one. And based on those, 17 were actually invited to join our batch. And so today we're here to celebrate those 17 different startups who have made it through our batch zero now and are graduating today. And by the way, we've, as of this moment, have investments into 6 of those companies. So we're really excited about that as well. And on the next slide, just to go through a little bit more detail on what we're going to be talking about today. For the first 15 minutes or so, we're going to have opening remarks here. Obviously, you hear from myself, but you also hear from my colleague, Logan, and we're going to be talking about what you can hear about today and Plug and Play in general and that kind of thing. At 11:15 a.m. Eastern time, you're going to be hearing a story from Stellantis. So we have a good partner, Tripco, on the line, and he's going to be talking about their success story with one of the startups. And then we're going to have 4 startup presentations. We're going to be following that with a panel which is themed around new business models in the automotive industry. And it'll be that sort of theme throughout the event. And so the next session will be MMSDC's collaboration story, followed by another 4 startups and another panel Q&A with those startups talking about underrepresented minority founders in the mobility space. Third, we're going to have BorgWarner's collaboration story, again, followed by 4 startups. And that theme will be making sustainable mobility a reality. And finally, we're going to have the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification share their story, followed by 4 startup presentations. And we're going to have that Q&A, which is going to be the portfolio company power panel. And so with that, I'd like to hand it over to my colleague, Logan, who can tell you a little bit more about Plug and Play in general, for those of you who may not be so familiar, as well as what we've been up to at Plug and Play Detroit.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam, and hello, everyone. I'm Logan Hazelton, and I'm leading the corporate partnerships here at Plug and Play Detroit. I'm super excited to be here with you all today. Albeit virtually, we're still going to have a great time. As Adam just mentioned, I have the pleasure of walking you through what Plug and Play Detroit does and a little brief overview of where we've been. So let's get started and dive right in. All right, so here at Plug and Play, we have 3 main pillars of business. First and foremost, we're a venture capital company. This is where we really make our money. We make a large amount of investments every year, typically over 250 per year, predominantly at the seed stage, and with an average ticket size of about 150 to 200,000, but again, staying very active. We co-invest with over 180 other VCs worldwide, easily making us one of the most active firms globally. This leads us into our Accelerator program. With a network of over 35,000 startups, we run over 60 Accelerator programs every year in most of the major cities and industries across the world. Most of you are familiar with the typical Accelerator programs, where young startup companies will give on average 5 to 7% equity stake for roughly $100,000 to $150,000. Then they're given access to a small channel of corporates and mentors to help them grow. What we've seen is that it's really hard for these early stage startups to collaborate with big corporations. So this is why we flipped that model upside down. Our program is completely free to the startups. We don't require any fees or any equity stake within their company. Instead, what we do is we run very competitive batches where our corporate partners choose the technology focus areas and the startups are accepted into the batch, ultimately steering the direction of the program. This allows us the freedom to get the best startups within their respected industries. Once startups are accepted into our batch, the program provides startups with access to mentors, startup forums, pitch polishing, office space, free lunch, and so much more. This leads us directly into the third pillar of business, our corporate partner innovation platform. This is where we really work hand in hand with over 500 corporate partners to facilitate those meaningful startup introductions through various lines of different services, really working closely with those business units directly as we aim to ultimately achieve more pilot projects, proof of concepts, and strategic partnerships to test technologies, then move them forward into full-scale production. The whole goal of this exercise on the corporate side being to either reduce costs or introduce new streams of revenue. And I have to say, during COVID times, the cost reduction aspect has been and is getting more and more important for everyone. So of course, we're not only doing this in Detroit, but we're doing this globally in over 40 different locations. So if we go to the next slide, we can see that 8 of them are now focused on mobility. And not all these locations are exactly the current tech hubs of the world. However, if we go into the next slide, we can see that we open these new locations because we found it's very important to be close to the corporation's HQ and get the various business units involved directly throughout this process to really drive the results. As Adam mentioned earlier, in partnerships with Stellantis, the Michigan Minority Supplier Development Council, Borg Warner, and the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification, we're able to bring our platform to the heart of the US automotive industry. So now let's talk a little bit about what we've been up to. So if we go to the next slide, we can see that we've come a long way since our first press release with Stellantis and MMSDC, where we made it known that Plug and Play was coming to Detroit. Since then, we've been staying extremely active, hosting numerous events, providing great insights towards the industry and all the different trends that are arising around us today. On October 22nd, our founding anchor partners reviewed the short list of 21 vetted startups that were ultimately voted on and accepted 17 of them into our batch. This marked the beginning of our Detroit inaugural Batch Zero. So fast forward to today, we are super excited to have these startups be graduating in our batch. We have worked with each of these corporations and their batch startups to ensure success on both sides. We've been tailoring meaningful introductions, providing feedback, and some general hand-holding along the way. So in addition to everyone that we've been helping with innovation, we've actually held an extra goal for Detroit powered by Amplified. So if you go to the next slide, you can see that we have a goal of 40% startups within our Accelerator batch to be underrepresented minorities and or female founders. So if you go to the next slide, you can see that we're super excited to say that our current Batch Zero has met the stated goal of 44% underrepresented founders. On top of that, we have a significant Midwest presence and a group of diverse technology focus areas. And we have an average amount of about $6.2 million raised per startup. So if you look at the bottom of the diagram, we can see our Batch Zero includes startups predominantly from the US, but also includes a couple from Canada and Israel. We have a stage agnostic spread of companies ranging from bootstrapped all the way up to Series A+. So if we go into the next slide, you can see here, as you may recall, this is what our batch looks like. And you can see that those highlighted by the stars represent the 6 that we've made investments in. And like Adam mentioned, you'll have the opportunity to see them live again today. So without further ado, I would love to turn the show over to my colleague, Mark, to continue going.